It's a fascinating story about how you kind of move from being a lawyer to setting up your own business. I just kind of like to hear a bit more about that, and what was the catalyst in your background before you set up Flex?
Sure. So I was a property litigator lawyer at a city firm. And I guess before I got my training contract, it took me quite a while to build up different bits of experience. I didn't really have any contacts in the legal space. And during my GDL, I knew I had to kind of gain some more experience. So I went and did some work in a high street firm just to get any experience on my CV.
Yeah.
Kind of snowballed. So I always knew how hard it was to get legal experience when I was a law student. And then when I qualified as a lawyer and did litigation, you have such peaks and troughs of work. And I so often needed a helping hand to help me with bundles for the next day. My firm was actually based next to a law school. So I'd always see these students outside my window and think, I remember when I was in your position, why is no one using technology to combine the two, where I can get in contact with you very quickly and see if you want to help me. So that's kind of how the idea came about. And then it probably took three to 4 years before I actually took the plunge and was brave enough to set up the company.
That must have been quite a step. Did you just say, oh, I've had enough of being a lawyer, or was it much more kind of, you had that such belief in the idea and wanted to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it was more, I definitely hadn't fallen out of love with the law. I still really love being a lawyer. I guess part of me thought this is a really good time to do it. I didn't have kids, I didn't have a family, and I didn't have when I first set it up. So it felt like I didn't have many overheads, so it was an easy time to take that risk. And I just kind of had the mentality that what's the worst that can happen? If it fails, it fails, and I'll go back and hopefully be a lawyer or a better lawyer because I'll have more kind of commercial awareness. I think a big part for me of taking the jump was getting investment. So I've spoken to lots of people, and when I began to get people saying, yes, I'll invest in that idea, and that gave me the courage to think, okay, this is a good idea, I'll do it.
Because I was wondering, how on earth do you start? Because when I started this business, all I needed was a laptop, and an understanding girlfriend, and that was it. So how did you start, and where do you go looking for funding? That's quite.
Yeah, so I did loads of research. So I started researching how many law students are there, how many law firms, what's a paralegal, how many firms use paralegals, which was actually harder than it sounds because the word paralegal is so elusive and it can mean so many different things. So, and then just decided to give it a go. So on the side of being a lawyer, I approached one firm and said, look, I've got 10 amazing people. If you need help, let me know. And I'm not making any money from this. I just want to prove a concept with kind of spreadsheets. So managed to get 4 paralegals placed into this law firm to help with the litigation matter. And that gave me
So you didn't spend ages and ages planning, and you got on and getting your first proof of concept, if you like.
Yeah, I suppose I did spend about a year planning and thinking of things like the name and doing research, but because it was only on weekends or evenings, it wasn't huge amounts of time. And then I just thought that the best way to give this a go is just to test it, and I'm going to learn a lot more about it as soon as I try and give it a go. So things like having T's and C's, I had to start drafting them, and the first set were awful and terrible, quite embarrassing, really. And I sent them off to the law firm, and they came back and amended them all perfectly. So, learning.
What did you learn in that first year? How did it, and who did you get the funding from?
So got the funding from angel investors, and I found I actually just approached. I wanted lawyers to invest because I thought that they would understand the idea and be able to open up doors and potential clients. So managed to randomly, I emailed a partner who said yes, who's very passionate about legal education and helping kind of the younger generations, and he said me. So I did, and we went in with our pitch deck, and then he said, great, I'd like to invest. And then he opened up the doors and introduced me to a couple of others, and it kind of spirals. Like as soon as through networking and through saying, if you know anyone else who might be interested, can you pop them in touch? And people are willing to help really and introduce you to people who might be interested as well. So it's probably a bit of luck, but also a bit of perseverance and being confident enough, I guess, to email people in the first place.
Yeah. And thereafter, have you needed more funding, or was it being sort of self-funding? Have you going through cash flow generation?
Yeah, so we raised 120,000 initially just to get going.
Yeah.
And then we raised a further 650 back in November 2018. And we didn't know it, because luckily we've kind of grown sustainably and profitably, but actually having it now with COVID and just having a bit of a kind of bank has been a complete life-saving thing in terms of our kind of mental health and making sure that we're not going to run out of money tomorrow. So we've been lucky in that we didn't spend it, and we've still got it there as kind of backup. And the idea really is to invest that money in the tech part of the platform and keep growing our tech side. So we're kind of doing that, but doing it quite cautiously, I would say.
Yeah. How does the kind of business develop? You know, you started off, you did your tests, you know, presumably went well with those handful of paralegals. What happened after that?
Yeah, so then I handed in my notice, which was terrifying. I remember bursting into tears the day I left my law firm, thinking, "What on earth am I doing?" And I just got going. You know, I'd never done sales before. I've never done finance and invoicing, and you have to kind of become a bit of a jack of all trades and learn as you go. So I had a partner who was the tech side, who was brilliant and was building the platform.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to do the rest, so do the interviewing, getting the candidates, and then also doing the selling. And we just grew it, you know, as it started. We placed 2 people, then we placed 4 people, and I think by Christmas, having started in September, we had 6 people, and it suddenly began to kind of pick up a little bit of pace. And as you get more clients, they start telling their friends, or you also can, you know, you can get referrals, and you also gain confidence in what you're doing as well.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it, or did you find it rather sort of traumatic?
I loved it, actually. I found it's really exciting, the first stages, and you know, I really had the attitude of, let's give it a go for a year, and if it doesn't work out, it really doesn't matter. I'll learn so much. I found, and I think you have to be quite motivated. It's your no, Ben, of setting up your own company, because there's no one to tell you what to do. So it's however much you put in is what you're going to get out. So you've got to be motivated to, and remember that, and then, you know, it keeps you motivated in a way. Yeah.
So you started with paralegals, and how have you sort of transformed the proposition since then? You know, you talked about technology as well. That would be interesting.
Yeah, so we started off just doing paralegals. So that was probably for the first 2.5 years. And then about this time last year, we started doing lawyers as well. So kind of flexible lawyers on demand. And that part of the business is going really well and growing. And actually, especially during COVID, that's doing better than our paralegal business at the moment. And then 2 other developments, which are kind of in evolving, but we are building an SQE diary. So the way to qualify is changing with the SQE coming in, and we're building a digital diary where people can record their qualifying work experience against their competency.
Okay.
So that's really exciting, because it will allow paralegals to qualify through the work that their work experience, and have a really good diary of what they're doing, and really look at their kind of how they can develop and become a better lawyer and self-reflect. So that's really exciting. And then the tech side, we're also offering, so quite interestingly, some of our law firm clients who have been working with us for 3 years have said, we love what you're doing, but we also love your tech. Could we actually have your tech to build up our own resource of flexible people as well? Because law firms have great networks. You know, they've got their alumni, they've got their future trainees, they've got people on mat leave, pat leave, and they don't use them as well as they could because they don't have the technology. So we are now licensing our software to law firms to allow them to use their network and manage their network a lot better, and create their own flexible pools of people.
Why is it taken off so much, do you think?
I think perseverance, Ben.
Charismatic kind of founder.
I think, you know, I guess when we started it, what we were doing is nothing new. You know, paralegals aren't a new thing, but the way we were doing it and the use of technology to make it much smoother and more efficient helped us deliver a better service. And then I hope the software side is the kind of new part of the business. And we've got 3 clients, and we only want 2 more while we build the product before we take it to market. And I guess that side is quite relevant right now with COVID and people wanting and realizing that they can work in different ways.
Yes.
And the legal profession feels quite archaic still. You know, if you'd asked a few firms 6 months ago or told them that everyone would be working from home and it would be working, they would have laughed at us.
Yes.
You know, and it has worked, and it's made people realize we can work in different ways and begin to look at the models of working.
Because, you know, a number of firms have got contract lawyers, you know, as within the firm, like A&O, and then you've got kind of other I suppose competitors to yourself. How do you what's different about you versus those other models?
Yeah, I guess those models were initially set up to serve their clients. So I imagine if you're on PeerPoint, you're serving A&O's clients on a flexible basis. So I guess our difference is we provide people to both law firms and in-house clients. You know, you can do either. And because we're not connected to any law firms and are kind of independent, it's easy for people to use us when they still might have their panel law firms who they should send other work to, I guess. And then I think our technology sets us aside. So sadly, in terms of kind of bonuses and salaries, every bit of profit we make, we're putting back into the business to invest in the technology. And that's always been part of the mission, is to make the tech side, you know, the big part of the business. So we are spending everything on tech.
And what's your, you know, because COVID has been, it's been a seminal moment, isn't it? You know, you could either say the legal sector is going to hunker down, just focus on cutting costs, and it will, you know, will not be wanting to invest in new ideas, or we say actually this will be a big catalyst for change, a bit like the global financial crisis was. What's your kind of prediction for the legal sector? You know,
I think when there's a crisis or when the economy is going very well, you always need lawyers. So there might have been dips and there might be hiring freezes for a while, but it will pick up. You know, the legal world is quite resilient in a sense because you always need lawyers. But I think this is really, from the discussions we've had with clients, this has really made them assess their models of working and whether they actually do need so many fixed term employees or whether they should have a more agile workforce where they can dip up and down. You know, law firms have so many different departments often, and they're not very good at looking across the business and seeing who's available and moving people around. So I think that would begin to change, and you can see it already with companies like Mason & Cook who look at resource management and try and make you kind of smarter with how you're resourcing your matters. So it is beginning, and I think that will increase over the next few years.
Cool. Last question, really. You know, I'm always kind of talking to kind of lawyers who are kind of budding entrepreneurs. What would your advice be to them, you know, having kind of been through there and made it a success?
I would say just do it. Fortune, my mum, when I burst into tears when I was leaving my law firm and called my mum just reminded me that fortune favours the brave. And I've never forgotten that phrase. And, you know, and I still think even worse comes to worst and Flex has to close its doors tomorrow because it fails. I've had such an amazing journey. I've learned so much and I really regret it. So it's definitely worth giving it a go and you'll have no regrets. And And actually, the other thing I'd say is you're not the first person to do it. So do ask for help, do set up an advisory board, do get mentors. I feel like everyone's always been so kind when I've asked for advice or help. And that's been a real learning curve as well, to just surround yourself by a good network who you can rely on and ask questions to.